sessions. Okay. Some ground rules before we start. If you have a query, if you want to answer, please just don't unmute and take the question. Please write it in the chat panel first. I will ask you to unmute. So we do have the option to unmute and talk. You'll have a complete two-way interactive session. But just let us modulate it in a way that it will be easier for all of us to relate to the same topic. Okay, so if you have an answer, if you have a query, you can raise hands. If you have a query, you can put it in the chat panel. I'll ask you to unmute and then you can unmute and talk. Okay, so how are we going to divide this session? Today we want to talk majorly about two things. Okay, 1 second. Are you taking the whole class today? Garston, I didn't understand. Come again. What do you mean by the question? Are you taking the full class today?
मैम ओरिएंटेशन है आज या ये पूरा क्लास होने वाला है?
नहीं orientation है, but orientation, why is it very important? Guys, are you able to hear me? Why I am able, you guys are sounding very, your sound is really feeble to me. Are you able to hear me properly? No, today is the orientation, but I'll tell you why is orientation very important, because we are going to discuss the AI CPA blueprint in a lot of details today. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to first talk about the exam structure. Okay, how is the exam? What is the expectation from AI CPA? But most importantly, we're going to talk in length about the topics that you have to emphasize upon as directed by the AI CPA blueprint. See, you may be following UWorld, you may be following Becker, Klein, Surgeon, whatever material you're following. I think it's very important that you follow what AI CPA wants you to follow. Okay, so we need to know from the horse's mouth what is it that they have told us we would be tested on, so that mentally you should know what amount of time and in what depth you have to prepare various sections. So that's the first deliverable of today's lecture. Then we want to talk about the exam content, okay, which is what the SCPA blueprint is. Okay, these two are the strategies for preparation. So all of you who are sitting for the first paper, or people who really want to have questions on how should you be preparing, what should be your strategy, this is the right time to ask me those questions, because once we get started, okay, sorry guys, what I'm thinking henceforth is probably every alternate week, on Wednesday, we're going to have a strategy session, which would be one-to-one. Anybody who wants to have a discussion with me on a one-to-one basis will earmark certain, days for those strategy sessions. And you can just let me know beforehand and we can quickly have a 10-minute Zoom call so that we can sort that out. Okay, so we're going to have strategy sessions henceforth once in a fortnight. And anybody who's interested can just book it beforehand so that you know you're on the right path. But apart from that, today I'm going to tell you what, according to me, has really helped students crack their exam in the first attempt. And the target that we're thinking of right now is April 2025. Any time after the second week, I think you should be really good to write your papers. We have made a lot of changes in how we are approaching these exams since the last time we took the paper. So people who have taken this session with me earlier, we are going to bring in regular tests now, okay, every weekend. And irrespective of what is your preparation level, I want you to sit and take those tests, because it's going to serve two purposes. First is that I'll get to know your way of thinking, which currently, when I'm having a one-way lecture, please participate in the classes, because when I see and hear what you guys are thinking, then I can help you understand where is it that you need to put an effort. And that's the reason why I feel weekly tests are very important. Okay, so we are going to bring in weekly tests both for Sims as well as for MCQs, and I would really appreciate if you guys can solve those questions. Okay, the tests are not going to be exam kind in the sense that they're going to be tougher than your exam, and the idea is to help you reach a level beyond which I don't think you'll be tested on. Okay, so I'll give you 20 questions every week from the topics that we would have covered in the class. And if it's not 1 week, it can be bi-weekly. It depends on how much we are covering in every session. And the idea is that if you can solve those 20 questions, really understand them and solve them well, then you're sorted. Please don't judge yourself, because I'll not be judging you. Okay, so so basically today's session, we're going to divide in two parts. One is the AI CPA blueprint, and the other is your preparation strategy. Anybody, any questions, please ask me when we are going through the session. Okay. Okay, what about the exam structure? Now, this is something that I think all of you know. I am going to upload the blueprint on the LMS today, and you guys can have a look at it. But ideally, according to the new blueprint, which went in circulation last year, this is the second year when they're testing it. Reg as a subject is actually the easiest subject to score marks in CPA exam. Historically, REG has the highest pass percentage and the highest high marks, So it's very common. At least my students, we've had a lot of instances where people have crossed 95 in REG. Okay, this is the only paper where it has been easier to score above 90 than the other papers. In fact, even last time when we had a session, many of you guys, we had 85, 87, 89. A lot of people had really good marks in REG. So the key is to understand how to crack this paper. What is it that AICPA is trying to uh, test you on, and how do you prepare yourself for it? Okay, so this is going to be a 4 hours paper. We are going to have two testlets of 72 questions each. That means the number of MCQs are really high if you look at it here. Okay, I think apart from it, ISC I'm leaving for the timing because our institute does not deal with ISC as a paper. But apart from that, I think audit is the only theory paper that comes close to REG. So the best part is if you have a lot of MCQ, it's very easy to score a big amount of, the marks gets easier. But the minus point is time management becomes a little dicey. Okay. And see, the best part is when you look at the skill levels that the AICP is going to test you on, you'll realize that if this is taken care of, and if you really know what are the big core areas where you're going to be tested on sims, then understanding the paper or understanding the setters of the paper, if you can understand their psyche, it becomes very easy to crack the paper. Okay, so simply put, we are going to have actually, okay, this is the first time when AICP brought in something like this. Till pre 2024, this kind of a breakup was not given earlier. So now it's very clear. This is going to be your half time, guys. Okay. So this is typically your 2 hours time. You would be expected to complete three testlets, two of which would be MCQ testlets of 36 questions each. And the last one would be a sim testlet. Now, ideally, this is going to be the toughest or the longest because, see, AICP is a paper that is, or USCP is a paper that's more on elimination concept. Okay, so they are going to put you under pressure. They are going to ensure that you get, they'll give you questions where you'll waste your time, where you'll get really tensed, and then they will try to see whether you're still sticking on to the paper. So, efficient time management becomes extremely important. Okay, so towards the end, we're going to talk about what I feel should be the best way of even sitting for the exam. When you're sitting for those 4 hours, what's the best strategy? But ideally, the expectation is that in the first 2 hours, you'll have to crack the first three testlets. And then in the next 2 hours, you'll be cracking the next two testlets. Okay, so the skill is to keep this time management as efficiently as possible. And that's the reason why testing becomes very important. If your mind is tuned to the MCQs and if you can crack those 36 questions in around 30-35 minutes, at the max 40 minutes, then you would know that yes, we have taken care of the MCQs. For Sims, it's not just practice, it is about concept and how are you understanding the concepts. So if you're able to, for this actually, apart from concept, I think practice also is very important. For the Sims, there's a very good quote that Charlie Munger, if you ever read his book, you'll realize that. And when I read that line, it really resonated with me. He said that all the way, and see, he's a guy who comes from the perspective that you need to have a multidisciplinary approach to everything, right? So he has given instances where he has said that a person should know psychology, a person should have numbers, knowledge of numbers, a person should be able to negotiate with people. So a lot of branches all come together. And he's used a quote in his book which says, poor Charlie's Almanac, that's the book I'm referring to. He's written a quote which said that if all of these come together like a cohesive concept, it's like they're not hanging loose individually, they're all coming together in a way that all of them are like a puzzle piece which will all fit together well. That is the time when you'll realize that you have been able to internalize those things. See, in my last 10, 12 years of history of teaching, I think that's the biggest difference between people who are able to clear this paper in one shot and those who don't. Both of them are putting in the same effort. But the first category is actually, studying like connecting dots. They will do the first concept. When they do the next concept, they will try to fix it to the first concept. Whenever there's a gap, they will bridge it up. So by the time they come, so they take more time because they're thinking a lot. They're not just doing questions, mechanically. They're thinking, they're aligning every concept with the prior knowledge. But the moment they're able to do that, that knowledge becomes sacrosanct. Nobody can take that knowledge. And whether I test you in the way that you have ever experienced before, or whether I change the questions, you're still able to answer everything. But the people who put in a lot of effort, but they don't think much, and they're not, and all of their concepts, so let's say if you're doing individual taxation, it's hanging loose. And then when you do corporate taxation, it's hanging loose. Then what happens ultimately, you put in a lot of effort, you put in probably more effort than the first person. But at the end of the day, when you look at your exam and they give you a completely new kind of question, you're zapped. So what needs to be done is, for example, if I'm doing C corporation taxation, you should think, okay, if a C corp distributes money, what should be the treatment of that dividend that I receive? So visualize 11, 20, 10, 40 together. Connect the dots. Everything which is an income will be an expense for somebody else. So holistically, just not do the questions. Do the thinking part more than just doing the questions. So try to have a cohesive form in which everything fits together as a puzzle piece and it interact with each other. That should be your approach. So if you think about it, the way we have modeled our classes, I have not followed any one content provider. Uh, UWorld, Gleim, Surgeon, most of them, what they've done is they have followed the AI CPA hierarchy. But I don't feel that hierarchy is a conceptual hierarchy. And a lot of places, I think there are improvements, which you will see somewhat in Becker. Becker has tried to do it, but there have been times since a lot of stuff in Becker is like, they just give you a macro view and they think that they have introduced you to a lot of concepts. Now you'll do the questions and you'll be sorted. So they are assuming a bit of prior knowledge from you. But they have attempted to put it in a conceptual hierarchy rather than following the AICP blueprint. So what we are going to do is this. We are going to follow a conceptual approach. Our aim should be that if we do a topic once, we should not be again coming back to that topic. So we have arranged the concepts in a way where you put everything together. But when you do individual taxation, you should be very clear about how 1040 works. Some basic concepts like what is a taxable incident, what is not a taxable incident, why are we taxing this particular thing, why we aren't taxing this particular thing. Especially, when you go to TCP, there were certain areas which earlier was reg and now they've broken it to TCP. There's such wonderful stories. If you see how those provisions have got evolved in US over a period of time. If you know the history, if you know the logic, why was it introduced? Then sometimes the intent makes a lot of sense. Okay, so try to assimilate concepts like common sense. I go by a dictum. Even as a student, I always went by the dictum: concept once understood is common sense. We have to understand the concept so well that it becomes a part of your common sense. And then, whichever way I twist and ask you, you would be able to answer the questions. So, many people say, I understand MCQs very well, but since I have a problem. You cannot have a problem with Sims because Sims is not something which is separately testable. It's not something that I can train you separately. If you know the concepts very well, all that you have to do is slowly get into the mode. When you're looking at a sim, you should know, okay, this is exactly what I'm looking for. If you're reading the sim with the knowledge what you're looking for, then half your job is solved. Because ultimately it will bring and it will come up like an MCQ. So the challenge is to reach that level of understanding where you can think through the questions and go back to your repertoire of concepts by linking everything together. And in fact, this is not what they were doing earlier in reg and far and even bc. They were doing it only in audit, but since 2024 they have put that approach everywhere. If you see now, they're not going to just test one concept and leave it. First they're testing that concept holistically. So in the partnership, for instance, if you're doing a partnership tax return 1065, they will not just ask you for 1065, they'll ask you for 1065. They will ask you how these figures are flowing in from the partnership account to the individual partner's account. Then they are mixing it up with some kind of 1040 question. And then they are saying whether you're able to understand the full flow or not. So please understand, in reg especially, I'm not talking about the business law part. In the regulation, the taxation part, you will have to do the prior concepts before you build on to the new concept. Okay, so I will break it down for you further when we talk about the content. But the way we are going to address the topics, we are going to start a little slow initially because it's a new subject. But have this in your mind really well that your aim should be to crack one MCQ in 1 minute, and your aim should be to stick to this time as much as possible. Okay, we'll come back to it. Probably once we start the sessions and once you get a hang, I'm going to come back and talk about what should be your preferred time management for cracking this paper. But just for knowledge, till now I've never heard a person complain that he or she has been not able to complete the reg paper. Time has never been an issue in the reg paper. Okay, last year I had 2 3 students who came up and said that they finished the paper like 1 hour in advance. Okay, so time is not an issue typically in a paper like reg. Okay, so what is it that they're going to test you with? It's a common thing for all the papers except for ISC that half of the paper would be sim and the other half would be MCQ. Okay, so now this is technically, and I think a lot of you have given papers before, this shouldn't be a problem. But for people who are taking this for the first time, this is what has been the skill level which is defined by the AICP blueprint. So they say that, see, the base level skill is remembering and understanding. I'll just give you a provision. And then, so let's say if I tell you, okay, capital gains at tax at a preferred rate. So if it's a capital gains, LTCG, I will tax you at a preferred rate of 15%. Let's just say that. So that's a fact. Now you remember that fact. They'll give me a question, typically an MCQ, and then they will ask me, okay, now can you apply this fact here? So you'll have to recognize, okay, this is capital gains, and this is it qualified for a 15% deduction? And if yes, apply that 15% and calculate the capital gains rate. That is remembering and understanding skill. Beyond that comes the application skill. What's the application skill? In application skill, they will not test you directly. They will give you a kind of a case study which will help you apply that concept in the real life scenario and then come up with an example. This again, if you have understood the concept really well, application does not make a lot of application is not a huge problem. Also, in bigger concepts, like if I talk about exchange of like kind business transaction, if I talk about how is the C corp form, now these are complex topics that have shifted from reg and now are a part of DCP. But when you think about these whole topics, you will see that at the maximum they will be less tested at the application level skill. So as a trainer, I always feel that the more difficult the topic, the easier the questions. Easier the topic, more difficult are the questions. So you have to be mindful about this. Okay, so application typically becomes very important in more difficult, comprehensive topics like consolidation, things which are leases, things which have a complete knowledge. It's not just bits and pieces. For those topics, application level skill is the highest level. But again, then you have another level which is called the analysis level. And apart from audit is the only paper where you go to the evaluation level skill. Apart from audit, the maximum that you can go for any other paper is the analytical level skills, which means what? They are not going to just leave you to one topic. They're going to assimilate 3 4 topics together. They're going to give you a case scenario. And then they want you to analyze the full case and then give them a kind of a suggestion or a report where they just don't want you to be a learner. They don't want you to just demonstrate that you have understood the concept well and you can apply it. But now they're expecting you to go a notch higher. And now you would be something like a professional who can analyze a particular situation, put an opinion, or kind of uh, give you an analysis. Okay, this is what has been given. This is what is the outcome. So when you have all of these, then it becomes analysis. Now, one very big change that has happened since last year was earlier they used to give you think about all those Indian papers that you did. There was a closed question given to you, right? All the scenarios were given to you, and then there were questions asked. They used to have that earlier, okay? But now what they've done since 2024, they said no. I'm going to give you a scenario where even those facts you will have to take out from the questions themselves. Which means rather than telling you that A have signed a contract with B, they will now give you the contract of A and B, and now they will ask you to figure out what will be the stipulations from the contract. In other words, they have gone to source documents now. They're not starting from the facts given to you. They will start from the source document. So if it is far, they will give you let's say an invoice, they'll give you an agreement. If it is reg, they will actually give you some expenditure, some kind of a supporting for expenditure, and then some kind of contracts, email exchanges to help you draw the facts which are important for your relevant circumstances. So one is source data. Now they are taking things from source data. They are linking a lot of topics, and for the same topic, they are not testing you on a part. They are actually testing you on the full thing, so that they can be assured that you know the full flow of events from A to Z. Okay, so that's a big change. Now, what is it that the reg section is going to test you on? See, the reg section is very clear. And see, if you look at this, this is a big chunk here, right? Around 30% of the paper is just from the remembering and understanding skills. Okay, here you will see a lot of business law comes into picture. Then you have a lot of data in individual taxation, which is Form 1040. Even that will come into picture. Okay, so 30% is like cakewalk. If you know your subjects really well, if you've done the MCQs really well, this 30% comes into your kitty straight away. All you need is time management and a very thorough preparation and understanding, base understanding of the concepts. This 30% comes into your kitty. Then comes the balance 30%. So if you look at it, around 40%. Okay, this 40. So if you look at it, the base level 70% comes only from understanding coverage. So if you've understood everything, if you've understood how to apply everything, 70% becomes easily attainable. The challenge is in the balance 30%. Those balance 30% would be those source documents, analytical level skills, where those concepts that you've learned, those concepts are kicking in. Okay, so your approach should be that when you do a topic, do it conceptually really well, practice the MCQs really good, and put it on a self learning mode. In other words, put yourself into a routine where whatever you're doing earlier is being revised on a consistent basis. And at the same time, when you're learning new things, try to connect it with the old topics. If you're able to follow these two things really well, why? Because first, reg is a paper that needs a lot of things to be memorized in your mind. So the key is not to leave whatever you've done earlier, right? So you're spending, let's say, 50 hours doing a topic or mastering a topic, and then you just leave it and go to the next topic. By the time you go back to the earlier topic, you would have forgotten half of it. Now that is something that we don't want. We want that knowledge to sustain yourself for the next 3 months. Okay, so please remember, do not make very lengthy notes. Even if you want to make notes, make it very graphical, very concise notes. Don't try to make pseudo books. Put all of that energy and attention into solving MCQs and sets. We are not going to leave anything for anybody else. You don't want to then take a Xerox and take a photo of all your notes and circulate it all out. All you want to do is clear reg in next 3 months in April and then get done with it. So remember, every minute that you're spending is important. Okay, so put all of that energy in MCQ, Sims, and thinking. How much are you thinking when you're doing the questions? Okay, what about the content? Now there are various topics. The best part is this is theory. This is completely theory. Okay, this again theory, but not that you should just read it and you'll be able to answer. The questions are all going to be applied questions. You will not get a single straight question in your paper. It will be, even if it's an MCQ, it's going to be an applied MCQ. So if it's a law of contract that is being tested, or if it is sale of goods act which is being tested, I think apart from bankruptcy, some small parts of bankruptcy, there's very little in law also that you can just mug up and spit. You will have to understand the concepts really well, because the questions are going to be very conceptual. Okay, but the best part is around 20 and 15, around 35%, around 35 to 40% is pure theory. Okay, we are going to do this in the fag end after we've mastered all the practical concepts, because see, theory is something that you can push and do it fast, but practical is something which takes time to build up. We are going to first start with Form 1040, then we're going to go to section capital gains typically, which is the concepts are common for both entity taxation and for individuals. So typically this is some schedule both in 1040 and in corporate C Corps. And here we're going to talk about various entities. Okay. Now what do you mean by that? If I want to run my business, Pixel, I can be a sole proprietor. I can have a partnership. I can have a one-person company. If I grow bigger, I can have a private limited company. If I go much bigger, I can have a public limited company. So typically, this is the gamut in which I can organize my business. So for each of those entities, I need to know how do I fill up my forms and how do I pay tax to the IRS. As simple as that. So we have individuals, which is 1040. In India, we have certain ITRs. I think ITRs in India also becoming way less complicated than what it was earlier. If you're a salaried employee having just your investments or your FDs, then there's nothing. You just finish your entire ITR filing in a couple of, let's say, maximum half an hour to 45 minutes, not more than that. So 1040 is for individuals. Then we go to various entities. So I told you partnership. Okay. Uh, then we have something LLCs. Then we have small companies. Okay. So typically these are small corps in the US who we term as private limited companies in India. And then we have these big companies in the US, which are typically public limited companies in India, or companies which are way bigger than small companies. Now, quick question. In India, is partnership a separate tax paying entity? Yes, no. What do you say? In India, is partnership a separate tax paying entity? Yes, no, don't know. Anybody? So if I form a partnership, let's say here, yeah, with what is the tax rate on partnership in India? Any idea? What is the tax rate on partnership in India? So partnership will file separate taxes, right? Not the partners. 30%, right? In the US, apart from C Corps and apart from 1040s, there are no other tax paying entities. That means C Corp will pay separate taxes. In individual, people will pay tax. So when I say individual, there are certain entities like trusts and estates who will have another form called Form 1041, but typically even they are put in the category of individuals only, right? But in the US, partnerships, limited liability companies, and S Corps, they will have a form. So we have a form 1065. We typically have a form 1120S. But these forms are more for informing the IRS that, see, there were two individuals who have run a partnership, made business income out of it. Now they are going to report that income on their individual 1040. So I am giving you a kind of a reconciliation and the knowledge that, see, this is what has happened here, so that you can go and test with these individual partners how much they are paying. So partnerships and small companies do not pay taxes in the US. They are merely called conduits or flow through entities. Income flows through from partnership, goes to individual hands of partners, and then they tax themselves on Form 1040. Okay, so we'll see all about that when we. So initially we'll start with 1040. 1040 is huge. There are a lot of stuff that you need to memorize, but it's easy. Once that hard grill is done, then you're done. You'll never get the questions wrong here, ideally. Entity taxation, on the other hand, is completely conceptual. And I think you can draw a lot of parallel between what we do in India and what's happening in the US as far as entity taxation is concerned. But here the concepts kick in. Okay, so my suggestion is, let's start with individual, ask that concept so that you can keep on, revisiting and revising those topics. And then when you go to entity taxation, we'll go on concepts. And then by that time, you will just revise your entity, your individual taxation. So by the time you write your paper, you should be really sorted. Okay. Okay. Now this is really important. I would want you to have a look at the AICPA blueprint. Okay. By the way, nothing much has changed in 2025 compared to 2024. Okay. So reg, you will see there's not many change. There's no change actually. It's just some, the year has changed. Now you're going to be tested for 2024 provisions. Now, what is the blueprint telling you? Guys, can you see the screen properly? Is it big enough? See, so see, I just want you to understand how to interpret the level of time and the depth that you have to put in every topic in reg. Okay, and for that, I think this is the best way to do it. I am going to upload this, the annotated one, but what I suggestion is that you can easily download this. I'll give you certain resources that you should be using while you're preparing for your reg exam. One is definitely this, okay, for irrespective of what different content providers have told me, this is where I would be seeing how much I have been able to master against the expectation that the AICPA has from me as a CPA aspirant. First is ethics. In your mind, tell yourself that this is something that is never going to leave your never going to leave you, okay? Because even when you become CPS, you'll have to sit for an ethics exam every year, okay? Every year or 2 year, depending on your license, how long you have to renew the license. So this is again completely theory, okay? And if you see, typically maximum test is the application level skill, but typically it will be remembering and understanding skill, okay? Then we will have all of this is just ethics, okay? Ethics, what you should be doing, what you should not be doing, what you should be doing if you're a taxpayer, what should you be doing if you're a tax return preparer, what you should not be doing if you're a tax practitioner, and if you're caught doing it, what will be the penalties that I'll impose on you. All of this is complete theory, okay? We'll do it in the fag end after we've done with all the practical. After this comes hmm. After this comes again these all of this is theory, right? What is your tax procedures and ethic? All of this we'll do in the once we finish the taxation part, then we're going to go to the ethics part. And if you see, the maximum level of skill that is tested is the application, nothing beyond that. Then we go to the next area, which is again theory, which is business law. We're going to talk a lot about contracts, but please remember, don't take this section easily, because these questions are not easy questions. These are questions which needs you to really understand the concept thoroughly, because they're going to twist you the questions in such a way that you'd be tempted to go to the wrong answer first. Okay, so even though it's just theory, but this is a theory that you need to understand really well, because if you don't understand it, you'll not be able to crack the questions. All the questions would be applied here. Okay. So this is all theory, contract act. Okay. In India, we have something called the Insolvency Act. In the US, there would be an act on bankruptcy, which is a small part of it. It's a part of your syllabus. We're going to do it. But again, that's a very, very small part of the big picture. Apart from that, contract, sale of goods, agency is very important. We have sureties contract. Okay, that's another topic that we have never done before in India, and at least I think most of you would not have been aware of those topics. So this portion is important, because once you get to this, you will have to put in efforts to master these concepts, because we've never done this before. uh, this portion, around 25% of the paper when it comes from here. Again, these are indicative percentages, guys. It is still not clear whether AICPA has a tendency to pull up questions that you're getting wrong. But there have been a lot of instances where students have told me that they get a question from government accounting, and then the next question is also government accounting, and the next question is also government accounting. So much so that the entire paper, around 30-35%, comes from government accounting section. So there is a possibility that there are some kind of a coding thing that's going on in the paper, where the questions that you're getting wrong gets pulled out more from the database. So there is a possibility, but having said that, I think that's more to do with MCQ than Sims, because more or less you will see Sims are following a pattern, right? So I feel that that kind of a concept would be there in MCQ, but this has not been explicitly spelled out by the AICPA. Okay, so this is a part, other federal laws, where you have to be a little careful. There are, again, completely theory. Okay, so should not be a problem at all. Okay, 1 second. Yeah. I would want you to know which is to be tested at application. The moment you see something at the analytical level skills, your antenna should get up. You should know that this is a topic that I cannot take lightly. Okay? So again, this is very easy, where I won't talk about sole proprietorship versus partnership versus LLCs and so on and so forth. So typically we have ethics, all the procedures in one part. Then we come to business law. We have contract, sale of goods agencies. Then we have debtor-creditor relationship. We have some other laws, and then we have business structures. Everything theory covering around 30 to 35%. I don't think you're going to get a lot of sins from this area, though. Maybe a small part from contract, maybe a small part from ethics, but it's not going to be heavily heavily tested in the simulation section. You're going to, so all of these areas, in order to ensure coverage, you will definitely have questions on these, but more on the MCQ side than the sim side. Okay, then we go to the this is property taxation. Okay, we are not going to start with property taxation. We're going to start with 1040, which is individual taxation, then go to property, and then go to entity taxation. Okay, again, if you see here, the maximum level is application, nothing beyond that. Apart from that, there's a topic called depreciation. typically you will have everybody who sits for the paper, you will have. So see, the moment it goes to analytical level skills, you should be very clear that you should be prepared for sims, because analytical level can be tested only in the sims. You cannot have MCQs testing you at the analytical level. So the moment you go to depreciation, you should know that this is an area that you cannot take lightly. They can test you in any depth as far as this area is concerned. So if you see what they're trying to tell you. You are supposed to be reviewing a tax depreciation and amortization schedule and the supporting documentation. So imagine you're somebody. How many of you have done tax audits here or been involved with tax audits? Anybody here? Raise your hand. Karsten has, I know. Rajshri. Okay. Sunita. Anybody else? Ever done a tax audit? Ever participated in corporate taxation? Yeah. Okay. So see, actually, typically what you have to think is this. For me, since I've done tax audits, I have never been in the side of the company doing this audit. I've always been on the other side as a reviewer who would do it. Okay. So I would always, so when I'm doing these concepts, I always put myself into some shoes. Okay. For me, without that, it becomes very difficult for me to study. So I used to think that when I'm doing this, a client has come and prepared a complete schedule to me, and that schedule has come to me, and now ultimately the client will have to devise or compute his corporate taxes. In that respect, how do I check whether what he's done is correct or not? Okay, so that is typically what is review. So review of what? A tax depreciation, amortization schedule. So fixed assets, I look at the fixed assets. Now see, when you go to tax, the best part is you already have an idea about what is P&L, what is balance sheet. What is tax? I have to pay a portion of my current year's earnings to the government. Okay, as simple as that. So I have a set of laws which helps me draw my accounts, which is US GAAP in the US. And I have a set of laws that tells me how much tax should I be paying. And for this current year, what are the figures that are relevant for me from financial accounts? So always remember you have a prior knowledge of financial accounts with you. All that we need to do is link it with tax and let you know why is there a delta. For example, in the US, now see, every economy wants to, or every government would want to direct the behavior pattern of people in a way to make the company or the country progress further, right? So what we do, people understand money really well. So what we do, we give them tax incentives. Okay, this is an area which is not flourishing. Let us give a tax incentive for people who would go up and set up factories there. In India, we have places like Hyderabad, we have places like, so Hyderabad at some point of time was really backward. And then they came up and they said, okay, government came up and said, you come here and you set up heavy industry, I'm going to give you tax offs. So you don't have to pay me tax if it's a heavy industry coming up in Hyderabad. Same thing happened in Uttarakhand. You will see suddenly there are so many companies who would have set up their factories in Uttarakhand. Why? Because there's a tax benefit. 10 years if you don't have to pay taxes just by setting up a factory in Uttarakhand. So be it. I want people to take, employees from the areas where it's very difficult to gain employment. So what I do, I give you a tax incentive. So here you will see that there are differences between how a complete entrepreneur would be dealing with a particular item in the balance sheet or the P&L according to the US GAAP laws, and how tax will give you an incentive so that you know that everything may be a business income, but everything need not be offered to taxation. So review means I have prepared that summary of how much depreciation should be provided. And somebody is now going to check it and tell me. So who is the somebody? This is you. You're a tax expert and you have to give an opinion whether this is a correctly made summary or not. If it isn't, then you'll have to correctly make it. So how would you do it? Review that schedule. Go to the source. Where is that? So basically you're auditing it. You're going to tell them, okay, where did you get this figure? Give me your fixed asset. Have you taken all the assets into it or not? Have you taken less depreciation? Have you taken wrong rates? All of that comes into picture. And then there's something called diagnostic, which is again a different kind of SIP. We'll see each variety of these SIPs. So in your mind, what you should be doing, a couple of things. First, understanding the topic, great. Understand what kind of questions can be put from that topic. And also understand that if you get a question like this, it should not come as a surprise to you in your exam. Okay, this is a question. Okay, this was a topic. Okay, this is what I have to look out for. And this is how to answer this question. That should be your methodology. Okay, so as you go for a particular topic, so every topic which has analytical level skills, we are going to do sims from that in our class. So ensure that all of you guys, even when you're preparing with the skill testing required for AICPA. Okay, but for you, I would want you to keep a tab of all the skill levels required for various topics. So it should not be that there is a skill level tested at analytical level and you have done that topic lightly. That should not be the case. Okay. So again, we'll have this is now individual taxation review discrepancies. So discrepancies, is very simple. They'll give you a couple of stuff and they'll now change certain things. Okay, so imagine a client who is a complete novice making something which is just not correct. So now the task is more. If I would have made it myself, awesome. But I'm not making it myself, so somebody else is doing it who's not that proficient. So I have to find out the flaws and then I have to correct the flaws. That is discrepancy analysis. Okay. So diagnostics, discrepancies, review, be familiar with these terms. When we do sims from each of these areas, I think you'll get more clarity on this. Okay. So we had business law, we had ethics, we had property taxation, we have individual taxation, which is like a big topic. And then we have these pass-through entities. Okay, we have these from pass-through entities. How is that related to individual taxation? So more on this when we jump into the topic. Okay, but how to interpret and read this is what I'm trying to arrive at this session. Okay. Uh, okay, so every time you say an analytical level skill, you should be very careful. This is something that I have to do with a lot of them. Okay. And then apart from that, we will have entity taxation, like you go to Form 10, 11, 20, which is for big companies in the US. Somehow I feel these are easier topics to handle because the concepts are very similar to what you would have done in your college level, school level, or any other professional level. There's not much change. The biggest problem in entity taxation was formation and distribution, liquidation. But thankfully, they've taken all of that out and they've put it in TCP. So those of you who are not interested in specializing in tax, you don't have to deal with those topics here. So reg, typically it's individual taxation, all of it. Uh, C corp. C corp is imagining that you are a person. So see, what is the logic behind you guys doing reg now? The logic is see, if you're not going to go for tax, for being a tax practitioner, all you could do is be into accounting. But even then, you need to have some base level understanding of tax. That is what we're trying to arrive at through this reg chapter. Okay. So whatever you do, have some base level understanding of the tax structure in the US as is applicable to various entities. Because even if you're not going for tax practice, you will still need these base information. Okay, so that's the aim for the reg paper which is being devised now. And if you're going for tax practice, then of course I'm going to give you everything in that area because then you are the person who should be guiding the clients how they should be going ahead. Okay. Uh, so this is as far as the interpretation of the blueprint is concerned. Anybody, any questions till now? And now there's no point going to this. I've given you the bigger points and more of it when we dig into this. Anybody, any questions so far? Are you able to understand what I'm trying to convey? That it's important to prepare according to the expectation from the paper. And whenever you're doing a topic, please go to the blueprint and test it whether your knowledge level is in order to solve. If they're going to test you at analytical level, you should be prepared for the analytical level. Okay. Okay. So this is as far as the exam expectation, content, directed by ICPA, all of that is concerned. If you have any questions on this, you can ask me now. Otherwise, we'll go to our strategy part. How should you be preparing? Anybody, any questions? Okay. So what should be your preparation level? Three things, very important. One is conceptual clarity. As I told you, if you're able to connect the dots, so solve less questions. Okay, I have seen this. Even now, I have students who keep on asking me, can I take Becker? With Becker, I'll take Ninja. With Becker, I'll take Universal. With Becker, I'll take I-75. My thing is very clear. One very important part of sitting for the paper in 3 months is to define your periphery, define your boundary. Whatever happens, people can do a lot of stuff. I will do only this, but I'll do it properly. Because see, every time, and that's the reason, I tell students that if you're not People say, let me take a printout of all the questions. Let me take a printout of this and that. I say, don't do that, because in your mind, when you see this volume and this volume, it affects your mentality. Do from one place, do it thoroughly. Think, the thinking process should be on when you're doing, link the dots and study. One place is good enough. If you're following our lectures, please do not go and follow anybody else's lecture till the time you feel that no, there's something lacking and you're not able to understand. Because any one lecture is good enough. I have seen people doing this. They will first come take my class, then they will go back home, and then they will go to the full lecture by the national instructors, maybe of Becker or Ugold, and then they will be ready for the next class, not having done MCQs. Don't do that. Just because you've been given certain things does not mean you have to do 100% of everything before you can get that confidence level. No. But MCQ is a must and sims are a must. Apart from that, whatever else you're doing, that is just for your feel good factor. Okay? Any one lecture is good enough, any one source is awesome. You don't have to go to any other place. There have been people who've been see, last year I'll tell you, there was a student from IS, there were students from Becker, there were students from UWorld, there was a student from Surgeon. Everybody cleared their paper. So that means none of the materials are wrong. None of the materials are inadequate. If people can understand the concepts, they can do it everywhere. Coverage is very important. Don't leave anything. In India, I don't know about you guys, but I've had a history of selective study. Okay. Because I used to do that. I used to be guided by the paper pattern. I used to be guided by my interest level. And I used to prepare things that I like. And there were portions that we always left. Don't do that in CPA, because that's not going to help you. You will suddenly realize that one very uninteresting topic, and you will get 30% of the paper from there. So that is a possibility, and the pass mark is so high that you cannot take a chance. So don't compromise on coverage. Learn things conceptually, cover, and then cover everything. No topic can be left. And if there's a topic which is really bad, there was a student called Anirban in one of our earlier batches. He cleared his CPA also. But he was a guy who didn't like ethics, and he left it till the last day of the exam. Don't do that, guys. If you don't like something, you'll have to do it before, because your mind will take more time to do it and will take more time to even process that information. So if there's a topic that you don't like, you will have to do it before rather than push it towards the end. Okay, this is the most important thing. This is the most important. See, consistency. It is not a paper that you can jam and you can finish it in 15 days. So if you've heard stories about people cracking their CPA 6 months time and doing their studies in 1 month and clearing a paper, those are exceptions. Okay, these are not papers that are aimed to be completed in 1 month, 1.5 months time. And most of you are working professionals and you're going to remain like that. So it's not a paper for which you should be leaving everything and sitting at home. No, please, whatever you want to do, you do. And you do a bit of time and keep it for your consistent studies. So it is not about how much you're studying, it is about how consistently you're studying. You study for 5 days and then you don't study for 10 days. Or you study for 5 days and then you don't study for 3 days. That's not what we want. We want you to pace out your time, but every day put in that effort. So the way I suggest is take a weekly routine. Okay, what is a weekly routine? You're coming 3 days in a week with me, right? Those 3 hours, 3 into 2, 6 hours, don't count it as your study time. Okay, because that's passive learning. Whatever you're doing is passive. After that, whatever we're doing in the class, what you have to do is just go through that material once. I'll be uploading all the PPTs on the LMS. Just go through that material once. And then quickly go and do the MCQs in that area. When you're doing the MCQs, read all the MCQs, read all the answer choices, understand where you're going wrong. And there's something called flagging the questions or marking the questions. Please flag or mark your questions. Why are we doing it? Because in every area we have 100 questions. We're going to reduce it to not more than 30-35 questions. Because if you don't reduce the questions, you don't reduce your time for revision. We need 3 revision before you sit for the paper. So how will you do the 3 revisions? Not one after the other. We'll start one, let the person go immediately in the third. So 2 weeks, I want you to keep your time. How much we're doing in the class, how much time are you taking to catch up with the class? Which means whatever lecture topics I've finished, you have to go home and you have to read that material once from my material, right? Right now, I'm not looking at your books. You can do it. But I'm saying the biggest friction is between learning and then sitting for MCQ. I want to crack that then and there. Okay, so all you have to do is go to the material and then sit. There's a beautiful podcast. How many of you heard about Dr. Huberman's Lab? Anybody here who follows his podcast? Anybody here who follows his podcast? Dr. Huberman, he's a Stanford professor, and he gives you all of those lectures on brain and a lot of health stuff. The other day, I was listening to one of his podcasts where he spoke about the neuroplasticity of brain, and he also spoke about what is it that makes learning most efficient. And he said that imagine, so there was a study conducted which said there are three groups of people. The first group did study, test, study, and then the final test. The second group did study, test, study, test, and then the final test. The third group did study, then test, and then the final test. Which group do you think did the best? Which group do you think did the best? Second? Second? Mostly people said second, but the answer is first. Now, what does it mean? It means that science says that the best way is to take the test as soon as possible. And why do we do that? Every time when you get something wrong, and then when you learn it, then that learning never goes away. So if you see in most of our classes that we take, live, the approach is to first put you questions, make you think, arrive at an answer, and then tell you, okay, this is how the provision developed. So the moment you do this, the brain connects the gap with the learning. So the biggest thing that you have to tell yourself is, please trust me, guys. I've been doing it for 10 years. Even if you want to study, even if you want to do lectures, whatever you want to do, you can do. But what I want you to do is, after you end my lecture, I just want you to go home, read that PPT once, which has now become live for you because you were there in the live class, and then immediately go and sit for your MCQs. And when you're doing the MCQs, earmark your time. When you do it for 2 weeks, not just for the next 2 weeks, if you are a star, a lot of people here who will be starting their studies with me now. What I want you to do is keep a pen and a paper and write your time. Diligently write your time. All that you have to do is come to the lecture. Don't take these 6 hours, okay? Go back home. The portion that we did, you're just going to read it from my lecture, from my PPT, and then you're going to sit and do the MCQs from that area. And then you'll flag the MCQs that you would want to revisit, and then you will sit for the final paper. Sim is your final exam, guys. Okay, I don't want you to cheat on your sims. I want you to take your time. If you guys want to read the material, whoever has given you that material, Becker, you, World Surgeon, Miles, whatever, please do it after you have done the MCQs, not before that. Okay, because after you've done the MCQs, you will exactly know what you're reading, how much emphasis you're going to put on the stuff that you're reading. Because the MCQ has a huge history, right? So, what an area which has never been tested in the exam, it's highly unlikely that suddenly they'll test that in the MCQ. Okay, so follow that, and then after 2 weeks, from the third week, we will have a method in which you will now know, okay, in a week, I will need 15 hours of study. If I do 15 hours, I will be able to catch up with Shraddha's classes. Then what you need to do, you need to put in those 15 hours and put it into a way where you can do it every single day. So in a week, I will stay 4 hours on Saturday, 4 hours on Sunday, 8 hours gone. Then I need only 7 hours. 7 hours, I will take 1.5 hours every day. And then it is sorted. I want you to reduce CPA to number of hours of study. So the moment you do that, you're done for the day. You know that it will be taken care of. So after 2 weeks, third week, I would want you to allocate. So if your study time is coming to, let's say, 15 hours, make it 70. Extra 2 hours or 1.5 hours would be for revision. Whatever we have done earlier, you're going to revise it. So parallelly, you will start revising from third week onwards. The idea is when I finish my lectures, so I'll finish it in exactly 10 weeks. I think 10 weeks, right? The moment I finish it, after 1 week, you should be able to finish it with me. So after 1 week, you would have done the full thing with me once, and you would have done first revision also. After that, we will need simply 3 weeks to prepare and write your papers. So ideally, I am looking at 12 to 13 weeks. Anytime between that, I would want you to write your papers. Okay, so 3 things: conceptual clarity, consistency, coverage. Don't compromise on any. And I'm telling you, my job is to just help you clear the first paper. The moment you guys clear the first paper, the others will just follow. Then you know what it needs to crack the paper, and you will just consistently do it for 3 more papers. Okay. Have people done it? The answer is yes. Okay. We had students from last year who joined us, who did it exactly the way I said. They did the questions, they did the sims. Okay, when you're doing the sims, please don't cheat. Don't look at the answers. Complete the full sim, see your time, because after you've done the sim once, then it is a part of your memory. And if you redo it also, it's testing your memory, it's not testing your concept. So sims, don't take it lightly, because sims are very few. And once you've done a sim, the thing is done. Then you cannot again do it and say, I'm doing it really well. Okay, so that is where you will understand where you're going wrong. Okay, is the strategy clear to everybody? 3 revisions. For the first 2 weeks, I want you to arrive at your magic number. In a week, how many hours you need to put to catch up with the classes. And then bring it, keep your half day off over the weekends, guys. If you have family, you have other commitments. So that's the reason I don't believe in weekend classes. Okay, if I take 3-4 hours of your time, then where is the time to study and then also have a family life? It's not possible, right? So that's the reason I strongly believe in weekday classes, weekend half days for studies, because see, you will need that depth of studies. Without that, you will not be able to clear CPA. So you will need those undivided 3-4 hours over 2 days, which is the, and during the weekdays, see, once you mastered a topic, then doing MCQ does not involve a lot of brain power. Okay, then that does not need a lot of concentration, and you can do it in bits and pieces. So ideally, what I'm expecting from you is Saturday, Sunday, do deep work, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just finish all the MCQs, and then just sit for the sims and then finish it off. I know it's easier said, but I have done it in the similar circumstances. There are lots of students who have done it in worse than circle. There was a girl, I will never forget her in her life. I think there are others who know her. But this lady, she midway, I think she has done 2 papers in India. Then she moved to US, Alaska. Then she had 3 kids. She did her CPA studies on her own, and she cleared the other 2 papers. Now she has moved states. Now she's set up her own practice. Whenever I think of anybody complaining, I don't have time, I don't get, I always think of that lady. She was managing her pregnancy, she was managing kids, she was managing her own studies. She didn't have any life classes there. She was managing a complete new setup, cooking, doing everything. Still, she did it. So there's no reason why you cannot. But imagine, the constraint is time. If you can understand how costly is your time, everything else will fall in place. Okay? Okay, I've already told you everything about this. So after the class, even if you want to read the book, even if you want to do everything, do it after the MCQs, guys, not before. Immediately after this, I want you to test yourself. Okay? Work out all the MCQs. You may not know every MCQ. Please don't put any kind of a judgment around how much you're doing, 62%, 72%. I don't care you get a 40% in your MCQ the first time when you do it. Because you are not sitting for your paper today. You're going to sit for your paper in April. And only that paper is going to let you determine whether you need to sit and reappear, or whether you don't need to sit. So before that, whatever you're doing, whatever you're scoring, it's okay. It does not bother me. Okay, what is important is, if you make a mistake once, try to analyze and figure out why you made that mistake, and see to it that you don't repeat that mistake. The sooner you close this loop, the better it will become for you. Okay. Typically, MCQs you'll see will have a pattern. 2 questions, 2 answer choices will be incorrect. The other 2 you will have to eliminate 1 out of it, unless the last one right. Okay. So the most important thing is, even if you get a sim wrong, even if you get an MCQ wrong, read all the explanations properly. Okay. Mark the sims. That's very important, guys. Because if you don't mark the sims, how should you be marking? Is going to be marked by how many questions you're getting wrong? The answer is no. It is going to be decided by, from the population, take out those good 30-35 questions, which if you know you solve this, you'll be able to crack the entire thing again. Okay, so please try to reduce it to less than 40%. Then only you'll be able to reduce your revision time. Work out the sims only after you've mastered the concept. Watch your time. Sim once done is done forever. Okay, so don't waste your precious sims. Okay, this is very, very important. And I have seen many people doing this. They will just complete the MCQs and they'll not solve any sims, thinking that they'll do it after the first revision. Don't do that. Sim is again training your mind to catch hold of important areas. If you postpone doing that, then you're leaving 50% of the paper in the fag end. So train your brain to answer MCQs and Sims in the time constraint that is given to you. If I would give everybody 8 hours to solve the AICPA paper, I'm sure everybody would be able to clear the paper. So the key is to put all of those questions and crack them in the time span that is given to you. That's important. Okay. So train your mind to do that. It's as simple as that. Okay, what do you have? What if you have a question? I think in the new elements, we have a discussion forum. You can put questions there, and I would strongly suggest that you do that. Take a snapshot of your question and the answer. Since all of you guys are having different content providers, please take a snapshot of your question and your answer. You're a part of a WhatsApp group of which I am also a member. But my suggestion is let everybody understand if there's a difficult question. Because see, guys, you are like 11. I think there'll be two, three more who will be joining us. I am giving you a batch of 12, 13 really serious people, okay, who are going to sit for the paper at the same time. See, guys, we have a small batch, but we have a very serious batch, okay? So please take advantage of this. You don't need 50 people to answer your questions. Even if you have five serious contenders who are going to write the paper together, I think that's a huge plus point. So please use it, okay? If you have a question, take the screenshot of the question and the answer and then post it and then put your query so that the others can all check it. Okay. And if not everybody else, I will give you the answer. Okay, please I will put in a lot of effort in the MCQ and the sim tests, guys. Okay, so I really want you guys to take these tests. Don't think of the ideal time. We are just training our brain, and MCQ test is not going to be easy. I am going to time it, and I'm 100% sure you'll not be able to do it in time. But in the process, your mind will get tuned to time, your mind will get tuned to the clock ticking, and understand that if you can do those MCQs, you can do every MCQ. Okay, so that's the level that I want to take you. You need 3 divisions, you need very consistent studies. Don't work, I have seen people taking 10 different contents and then not clearing the paper. You don't want to be pundits. Please remember, I don't want you to be a tax practitioner. I don't want you to do that. I just want you to crack your paper. So all R&D you do later. Don't do it right now. Right now, just prepare yourself to write your papers and clear it. All our sessions will be targeted towards that. If you have a query, you can put me. But if I feel that query is not relevant for clearing the paper right now, I will probably take it off the class and I'll answer you privately. Okay? So please understand our aim is to crack the paper in 3 months' time. Okay? I've already told this. Okay, this is very important. I know how of you will realize this. Uh, I still remember Anirban in the last time when I had a word with him, he told me that, the biggest thing was that what he got from the group was a group. He said, I'm not talking to anybody. So I don't know if what I'm doing is good enough. Just the fact that there are other people who are writing the paper with you makes a huge difference. Okay. Okay. For those of you who are going to file their eligibility, please understand this is the first step. If you're not eligible by the time you're writing the paper, then you've missed the bus already. Okay, so we are going to take the paper in April, and it will be great if you finish your eligibility by then. So, which means everything that needs to be done from your side, please prioritize this. This is the first priority. Okay, I have seen people wasting 1 full year, not even getting their eligibility out. Don't do that. Okay, because this time will never come back to you. Don't leave the sims. Whatever you're doing, have a balanced approach. Don't leave the sims. Okay. Even if you want to do 100% of the MCQs, which is a very, very bad idea, but even if you want to do that, please flag your questions because you can only do it for the first time. Later on, it does not make any sense whether you're doing it or not. And please trust the process. When I'm telling you there are people who've done it, there's no reason why you would not be able to do it. There can be 10 good things in the market. Trust one, so draw your boundaries. And then beyond that, don't go. Whatever be the thing, don't go. Okay, one more thing. There's a group called RCPA in Reddit. Okay, please join that group because you'll see a lot of people who are taking their questions. They do put up their comments in that group and it does help. Okay, so if you're not a part of that group already, please be a part of that. You get an idea and a sense of what papers are coming and how you should be prepared. Okay, this is very important. We generally do it in our live classes. We just had it for bar. Before that, we had it for FAR. Just before sitting for the paper, please go to the AICPA release questions. Okay. Okay, this is something that you should never do. I have seen complete breakdown from people's side. Okay, they took a paper, let's say 3 days before the final exam, they didn't score well, and then it was a huge meltdown from there. I have taken calls. There was a student who went to US during those times, when we started, papers were not opened in India. She went to the US, she cleared 3 papers. Audit she could not clear after first attempt, second attempt, third attempt. After the third attempt, she called me. I think she was at a sister's place there. And then she said, I'm dropping out. And it took me a lot of time to convince her that, there's no option. Understand, if you're into it, there's no going back. We'll finish it. As simple as that. And people who finish it are the people who don't give up. So, one thing I want you to understand is that this paper, when you sit in the paper hall, only 50% is preparation. The balance 50% is attitude. So whatever we are doing now, I can prepare you only for 50%. Remember, the balance 50% is your attitude, which is a big proportion. So what I want you to understand is that your attitude is going to play a very, very big part. And it does not matter. These are professional papers. It may be possible that you've never flunked any exam in your life. And if you do flunk a paper, it will sound a lot. But think about, 5 years down the line. 5 years down the line, it doesn't matter. When I did my CA, I think I did it in 2005-6 batch. Okay. At that point of time, there were so many people. There were people who were not able to clear CA in 6, 7 attempts. Today, trust me, everybody is doing very well. So it does not matter. Right now it feels a lot. It makes no difference because in 5 years' time, you are never going to remember this misery even if you flunk. It's just a matter of another. Okay, money is an important factor, right? So if you're not earning, I understand the pinch that it has because you have to spend a lot of money. So my suggestion is prioritize this time. The fact that you're doing it for the first time, do it correct and clear the paper. Apart from money, you should not worry about anything. And money, be prepared that if something happens, you're going to. So people who are abroad, a lot of you are outside, right? For you guys, it's a huge benefit. Trust me, because it does not hit you that much when you have to rewrite your paper. For Indians, it's a pain, okay? Because 60,000 is a lot of money that you put. So that is the reason I say that how you study is more important, okay? And what you feel about you is equally important, okay? And I think there's somebody here, Rashi. I'll take your example again. I want this thing to get up. Okay, by the time we clear CPA, I want you to start thinking good about yourself. Read good books. Uh, I don't know if you've ever read David Goggins. If you've not read David Goggins, please read his book. Every time I read his book, even if I'm feeling like shit, I am back in plan. Okay, I am back in the good space. So whatever you do, understand that make up your attitude because that is going to show in the examination hall. Trust me. Okay, Rashi here, when she cleared her paper, I was sitting with my in-laws. All of us were together. We were having our dinner, and there were people who were calling me, "Ma'am, I cleared. Ma'am, I cleared." Rashi called me and said, "I don't know whether she cleared or not." She cleared, and even when I told her she cleared, she said, "Oh, I think this is not my marks." Don't do that. Okay, you are amazing. The fact that you guys have took this step today and you're going through this process itself is a huge process, guys. Okay, and it does not matter. There are no competitions. And trust me, nobody is going to remember you. Nobody remembers me. Nobody will remember you. So you do it really well, but you don't do it well. It's okay. कुछ नहीं होता है. Okay. So under no circumstance are we giving up. That is something that I want you to remember. Okay. I know. I know क्या चल रहा है माथे में. बोलना बहुत आसान है. हो जाएगा. I'm telling you, हो जाएगा. बहुतों का हुआ है, आपका भी होगा. There's no reason why this will not work out for you. And my job is to ensure that even if you don't make it, I am there. We'll do it together. Ketan, how many here know Ketan? How many here know Ketan? He took a last session for reg with us. Ketan had a very bad time, okay? He's a guy who's got everything in the first shot. He's cleared everything in a life in the first shot. And he was not able to clear CPA. For some reason, one or two things, 1 mark, 2 mark here and there. This is the first time he cleared. And I am so happy for him. He got an 81 in bar. So it is okay, guys. Don't be too hard on yourself. Prepare to give it your best shot. And I'm sure you'll be able to complete it. And even if it isn't, we'll again go for it There's no harm. There's nothing that will get spoiled in the process. But 60,000 is a lot of money for those of you who are in India. And I would really feel that you have a time for 3 whole months. We'll give it and then we'll crack the paper. Everybody in the last batch, I think Sinath, he gave me a message. Ma'am, who I knew I am not able to understand. I said, Arey, it's showing, your marks are showing. Why are you feeling so skeptical? It was his last paper. He also cleared CPA. Okay. Uh, I know it's a bit of gyan, but anybody, any questions? Please don't judge yourself. Keep you and your marks separate. People start seeing themselves through the eyes of the marks that they're getting. Trust me, nobody is thinking about you. So I think that's a very important thing that you'll have to learn. Okay? Many of you, I'm very excited about this journey. I love teaching reg, okay, because there's so much to learn in this area because this is an area which nobody has done before. So it's a very interesting area. Yes, some part of it is something that needs you to be putting in effort, but it is manageable. We are going to do it together. Okay, now tell me, anybody, any questions? Okay, one last thing for people who are with UWorld, I'll just take you. What I can do is, apart from UWorld, I can just quickly take you through the LMS first. If you have a question, please ask me now. Okay, this is our LMS, guys. I think it's a very simple LMS. So this is the LMS, and I think this is the student's view. This is the schedule that I've put. These are just the chapters that I've created. As and when we'll be completing a session, like today we've done this session. Today's PPT, I'm going to upload it. I'll upload it under orientation. So this is the PDF for the schedule. This will go away, right? The Zoom classes, okay. Every day there will be a new Zoom link. And as today, you just have to go to that link and start the session. Okay. And whatever material I'm uploading as PDF or as lecture, all the lectures that we're seeing, all those lectures will be uploaded. I'll upload it today itself. So you'll find it again here. There are different icons and you can figure out this one is for PDF. There's another one for video. So everything that will be referring in the class will be uploaded on the portal. Please refer to it. And when there are questions, I'll give you MCQ tests also. I'll put in two separate headings for MCQ test, weekly MCQ test and sim test. You'll have to take that. Okay. So my elements, I think, is pretty straightforward, and I don't think many of you would have an issue with it. Anybody, any questions? Uh, through this sheet, you're talking about the schedule, Ankita. Ha ha ha. Okay, okay, okay. I'll just tell you. Okay, see, we are following concepts. Okay, so I've given you topics. Now these topics need not. It's not following the hierarchy that UWorld has said. It's not following the hierarchy that Becker has said. But what we're doing is we're following the concepts. Okay, so every topic that we'll be doing, I have linked it to your UWorld, Becker, so whichever material provider you're with, I've linked it to your material. So what I want you to do is after my session, I just want you to read the PPT once and then just go and solve the MCQs for that particular area. Okay, this is schedule. We are planning to finish it. The base material would be done by 1st of April. There would be some sessions. I'm planning to take 2 dedicated sim sessions, which will be on the weekend. And there would be 3 on the whole complete revision sessions. That is going to wrap up everything that we have done. Okay, I really wanted to do it for bar, but then I had to change my LMS and it took a lot of time. Okay, but I will be starting it from reg. We're going to have 2 dedicated sim sessions, 6 hours, and we're going to have 3 sessions for reviews towards the fag end. Uh, yeah, I know, Rashi. That's the main thing. Okay. Yeah, so there has been a lot of effort and thought process behind changing the LMS providers, and the idea was to make it really easy for you guys. In fact, in the last LMS, it was very difficult for me to put questions also. Okay, that's the reason why we could not do a lot of tests. We are going to put all of that here. All you have to do is, guys, when we do this, this is a part of this particular section for you all, this particular section for Becker. Just do the MCQs from that part. Okay, we are going to do a lot of sims in the class. The approach that I'm going to follow is if any topic is going to be discussed, I'm going to do it practically. If sim is the best approach, I'll do it from sims. If MCQs are the best approach, I'll do it from MCQs. So the idea that I'll be following is whatever we are doing, it has to be done holistically in a way that you can understand. Okay, it will not be done theoretically. Mitali, unmute. What is your question? When do we do sims? Unmute.
Good morning, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah, so Sims would be after you've done all the MCQs in that topic. Wait for the topic to be finished. After we have done, like, this will take a bit of
Okay.
time. Monday, when we start, I think Monday we have filing requirement, filing status. When we do this, you will do the MCQs from
Yes.
your side. Once you've done all the
Hmm.
MCQs, then you will do, and then you will sit and do the Sims, but keep your time. Uh, Keep
Hmm.
your time and ensure that you're finishing a sim not more than 40 minutes at the max, not more than 40 minutes for any sim. Okay,
Okay.
and then figure out where the mistakes. But after you've mastered the topics, okay, if you want to read,
Hmm.
you're with Miles, right, with Ali.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you want to read Miles material, you should ideally do it after you've solved the MCQs and
Okay.
before you're doing the Sims. That should be the best time, and you should read your Miles material.
Okay. So it's like
Okay.
when I complete the complete R1, afterwards I should go with the simulations. Meanwhile, I should practice
Once
MCQ.
you finish, so now see, in Miles, again there is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and so on,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So the moment you finish a subtopic, which is big enough that you have a dedicated MCQ section for it. Have you
Hmm.
understood what I'm saying? Let's say
Yes, ma'am.
they've clubbed one or two topics, then you will wait for the entire section to be complete.
Hmm.
Once that particular section, so I don't want you to wait for the entire R1 to complete. No, you can,
Hmm.
let's say I finished filing requirements, filing status, dependence, and all of that is
Hmm.
1.1. So the moment I finish these two topics, then you take the MCQs from R1 because MCQs will all be mixed, right? So the
Hmm.
moment these two topics are done, you will take the MCQs, and then after you've done that, you will read if you want to read. I mean, there are students who have not touched the module and they've been able to clear reg. It's up to you. My suggestion is for the first initial topics, do it. You be convinced that we are covering everything in the class, and then
Okay.
sit for the Sims. But when you're doing Sims, you should not look at the solution in between, and you should
Okay.
complete the entire thing and then see how many gradable items were there and how many were you able to crack and where Sims.
Okay,
Is that okay?
got it. Yes. One
Yeah.
thing more, ma'am. See, Monday,
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday, we have class. And firstly, you give us class, then I should go with the PPT stuff and correct the MCQs. Correct. And
Yes.
what should be my schedule for the Friday, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
No, that you will have to devise in your own, Mitali. My expectation is, let's say I sit next day, let's say tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I will finish these topics. Okay.
Correct.
My expectation is whatever topics I am finishing, give yourself 2 weeks time because gross income is a very big area. Okay. So I might not be able to finish it this week itself. Then after
Okay.
next week, whatever we
Hmm.
are doing in the class, you have to make it up at your end. So if you are in the class and if you want to do a little bit more, do contract that. But with me, just remain for these. If you're able to catch up with the class, then whatever
Hmm.
you're planning for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I don't have an issue. But after
Okay.
2 weeks, let's say when I complete, let's say gross income, then I would want you to dedicate some hours over the weekend for
Hmm.
your revision. So whenever you're doing further things, you should be able to revise whatever we have done. So
Okay.
how do you want to spend it over the next couple of days? It's your headache. I just
Okay.
want so initially 2 weeks, man, I just want you to take your time. How many hours you would need. And then after 2 weeks, I want you to break it. Whenever you feel you are undisturbed and you want to put in, big effort or something
Hmm.
which you think is more time consuming, try to put it at
Hmm.
a time and you will not have any breaks. Have I been able to explain myself?
Yes, ma'am.
So I am only interested in ensuring. See, if as far as I am concerned, the topics that I finished, you should have finished the MCQ and SIMS of that topic, and you should have taken the MCQ test. If all of that is happening, then how you're planning, whether you do it in 5 hours or
Hmm.
15 hours, it's your headache.
Okay.
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 So ideally, how you plan your day depends on how many hours you will need, which you don't know right now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So take your time for the next 2 weeks, and then you tell
Hmm.
me.
Okay. Done. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any other questions? Anita, I am so happy to see you in my sessions. Okay. There are a few who yeah. Rashri, Sunita, तुम लोग जाओ अभी. You have your papers, ना? अभी और you can ask questions later. Rahul, I am expecting that this time you're going to be very serious with me. Is that correct? Rahul, are you there? Rahul Khatri? Anita, you have a question? Yeah, tell me. Unmute.
Yeah, hi Shraddha. It was
Hi.
really nice to see you again.
I am also so
So
happy to see you in my
yeah,
class. Tell
I
me.
will try my best. Like I have made up my mind to be in the classes. Like though I'm not an early riser, but I'll in the class. And I have a question. When are you going to like after you start with your classes? When are you going to have the MCQ and the SEM test? Like from 2 weeks onwards, or?
See, that is a little. I'll try not to delay it. I'll try to make it weekly. Maybe if I don't have a lot many questions, I'll reduce it to less questions. But I want to have a weekly test because without that, I would not know how much you guys are understanding. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so ideally it should be weekly, but let's say if, initially we have to start a little slow because the topics would go really slow because gross income is a very big topic. So if I feel that we've not covered enough over a week that I can test you, only then I will delay it. So probably for the first 3 weeks, I might give you two tests, maybe. But then eventually I'll make it a weekly test only.
And how is going to happen? Like we have to do it on our own at our place, or how is going to happen?
See, I just like that. Here you will have a section called MCQ tests. So there the
Okay.
test will open. I'll keep it like an open test where you can attempt as many times, but it will be a time bound test. So whatever you're giving in that test, I will have a visibility of how you have performed.
Okay.
Got
Okay.
it?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. See, I will show you one of the area. Acha, theek hai, chalo. I have, what I've done is I have made a separate course for government accounting. For many of you who struggle with government accounting, I had a lot of requests. So I have made this course on just the government accounting. I'll show you how the MCQ test will look like. 1 second, guys. Yeah. So see here, and this is my interface. You are not going to see this interface. But see here, do you see this sim test? Okay, sim test, I don't have the interface like an exam. So sim test will be like a normal PDF and you do the questions. The solution will come a week thereafter. Okay, but MCQ test will be like this. So if I look this will be your review. This will be the student interface. Okay, for the MCQ test, if I go here, I can start the quiz, and like this, the quiz. This was a general instruction. Then when you start the quiz, it will be like a proper MCQ test where you see the questions, and then you can say which question you want to take, whether the answer is correct, non-correct, everything. Have you seen this? So MCQ test will be like this. But the sim test will be like a normal PDF file where the questions will be uploaded and you will have to attempt it. And next week, I'm going to release the answers. Next week. Okay, so this is a question that will be shared with you, and there will be some annexures, and the questions will all be given to you, and you will have to give the answers. Oh, God, I think I made a mistake here. Acha, this was a solution that I was opening. This will be the test. Okay, so Sims would be normal PDFs because I don't have the interface to give you a sim test like the AI CPA. But MCQs would be like a normal MCQs, and Sims will be PDF questions. You solve it at your end, and next week I'll give you the solution also. So solution also will be uploaded on the elements. Is that okay? Okay. Now for those of you who have taken UWorld, I'll just quickly go through the interface once for you guys. So this is the student interface of UWorld, and Kanan and okay, all are there, and Acha, Harsha is already there, so she would know. Now see, if you go here, this is your self-study mode, okay? So if this is your self-study mode, you can look at your lectures, you can have the ebook, you can have your question bank, and from your question bank, you can even create your test, you can have your own sims here, okay? So the UWorld interface is pretty simple. All you need to do is get to the self-study mode. And if you want to create your own test, you can create. Otherwise, for every topic, this is a National Instructors Lectures. This is the e-textbook if you want to refer. But if you want to refer to the e-textbook, please do it after you've sat for the MCQs. Now, how do you mark the questions? See, if I go for the question bank, okay, no, I think... okay, they have given you separate MCQ questions. Okay, they have given you all the released questions for all the subjects. Okay, which is like a good thing. They've given you AI CPA blueprints also here, which is good. Actually, they've changed the interface here, I feel. And if you go here, and if you go to full course, this is the textbook. Okay, 1 second. Okay, this is the e-textbook. 1 second. I think this is my interface, yeah? I think this is my interface. Okay, for those of you who have UWorld, we can sit with all the questions in that particular area, isn't it? Yeah, see, this is the topic. Let's say if I have a normal test that I want to just sit for the MCQs, I can choose the UWorld Sims, I can choose all, and I can choose the topic also, which I want to take. And then I can just run. Here we have 19 questions. I can choose all the questions and I can generate a test. And then I can just sit for that test. So basically, we're doing all the questions from this area. This is how we flag a question. Okay. So if there's a question, you can just flag it here. Next time when you run the sim, the MCQ, they will ask you whether you want to run it only for your unused, unmarked, marked. So you can choose only the marked questions. Anybody, any questions? I think we've gone through the interface, we've gone through LMS, we've gone through UWorld LMS, we've gone through the preparation strategy, the AI CPA blueprint. I think that's it from my side. Anybody, any other questions? Oh, yeah, we finished it pretty fast. Thank you, Rahul, for being a part of the session. I think this was an important session. Generally, I don't like people missing because it helps you understand how should you be preparing. Okay, Karsten, are you going to start from scratch and redo the full thing? What is your plan? Karsten?
I don't know, ma'am. I think I'm going to do the whole thing again with you, honestly.
How long has it been?
A while.
How many months?
2-3 हो चुके कि पढ़ाई नहीं किया.
हाँ तो आप पूरा करोगे फिर, right? Just follow the
हाँ, मैं
same.
पूरा ही
I think
करूँगा.
those concepts will
हाँ, हाँ.
start coming in. But this time, Karsten, I want you to analyze your mistakes really well. Because see, what I discovered was a lot of people who were very confident in the paper yet who couldn't clear. The reason was not that they didn't understand. The reason was that they rushed through the paper and they could not understand the traps that the paper had set for them. So I want you to very carefully analyze where you're making mistakes. Is it like, you are preempting the question? So you need to know very well where are you crossing the question and are you assuming certain things which the question is not giving? That analysis is very important for you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Ankita, see, REC, the syllabus is not changed, Ankita, but REC is like IRS laws, right? So 2023 laws were relevant for last year. This year it is 2024 laws. So for REG, I would not want you to refer to any other material rather than the current material because it's very difficult to unlearn what you have done and then relearn it. So when you're doing it for the first time, do it from the updated material because there's so many provisions and there are a couple of things that you have to keep in mind also. So if you will not never have the time to take the last ones and then change and then do it. Yeah. Anita, we are also leaving. The time is up. Okay. This is very, very important, guys. Everywhere the modules have been changed according to the new laws. Please don't follow the earlier laws because you will not even realize small areas, penalties change, all the provisions which are index changed, right? So we cannot afford to follow the wrong stuff.